Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today we're joined by Dr. Rodrigo Viecilli from Orthodynamo, who's going to break down what really makes a successful digital marketing strategy. We'll be talking about real practice data to target the right patients, why SEO is a huge component in the success of your website, and how strategic behind the scenes efforts like your maps and reviews can play a major role in your online success. Let's get started. This episode was brought to you by Gray Finch. Hey docs, if you want to have a great business, the right practice management software is essential. But some can be slow, outdated, and lacking good support. That's why I recommend Gray Finch to all orthodontists. It's the fastest, most reliable, and most secure platform to grow your business and improve your efficiency. It's completely web-based, so you can run your entire practice anywhere and from any device with no servers, no downloads, or hidden fees. They even have the most helpful and responsive support team around. Right now, Gray Finch is giving a $500 discount to our listeners. Visit grayfinch.com/Jill Allen to learn more and see why it's one of the fastest growing providers in America. Rodrigo, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. I would love it if you would start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself. I know about you because we got to work together when you opened up your practice, but if you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and then why and how you got into, besides being a fantastic orthodontist, why you got into doing Orthodynamo.
Okay, I have a unique background in a way that I came from academics. I was in full-time academics for 8 years. I have a PhD and I was a professor at NYU and at Loma Linda. I did some pretty cool things, have some patents invented as Smart Arch. Some people know that Ormco sells. And so I was pretty successful in academics, but at some point I decided that I wanted to try something different and start a private practice. And one of the main reasons I didn't start before is because I didn't know where I wanted to live. So when I decided to live in Austin, I decided to open a practice here. It was an interesting decision because it was as the pandemic was starting. This is not going to last very long, and maybe this is a good time since I'm home anyway to plan my whole private practice. And yeah, that was not the best decision, but
but you made
cost
it.
me quite
You
a
made
bit.
it.
Yeah, I could have waited a bit more, but it happened, and I had to deal with it. There were a lot of challenges. I was one of the COVID practices. And of course, being a COVID practice, you got a lot more expenses than you expected, and issues with construction delays and issues with rent without having income. And fortunately, I could support that, and my practice made it through it. But at the time that I started the whole project with the marketing, I tried to do it very carefully, try to hire a company that was reputable. You helped me through that. But close to the time my practice was opening, I did the regular marketing that everyone does, talking to dentists and trying to get in a very competitive city. I can say now, because I have data from a lot of orthodontists, that of all the cities that I work with, Austin is the most competitive. Somehow everyone decided to move here at the same time. So we have about 40 orthodontists here. It's quite crazy for 1 million people. I would say Manhattan, where I have a client, is a lot less competitive than here. And it's interesting that after all that happened, I was very dependent on digital marketing for my practice to survive. Being in a very competitive area where dentists already have places they refer to, it was difficult to get dentists to convert. But I got a lot of experience doing ads in that time and knew what it took to convert patients, knew what it took to advertise, what kind of advertisement worked. And I was molded by difficulty, let's say. So.
Yeah. And I know we could just keep going on that. Talk about a doc that made it through adversity. Just in and of itself, being a startup in COVID, and then coming out of that, and we still had all the dental offices shut down, and they didn't want to meet with you, and nobody wants to do anything. Right. I think you did a really fantastic job at saying, okay, I've got to figure out the solution to growing my practice, because it's not going to happen the traditional way. And so I think that is what is exciting, and why I want to talk with you today a little bit about what kind of brought us to today and Ortho Dynamo. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about what brought you there, but also more so what you guys are doing differently. And I really do believe, for anybody out there listening, you are taking a different approach than what we are normally seeing out there when we think about digital marketing companies. So can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Yes, as I was saying, I started with ads, and I was an academician and scientist. I've never wanted to be a business person for a long time, but I decided to take this path and did. And so I had to learn all those things, and I understood that if I didn't do it, my practice wouldn't survive. And so we started with ads, and I had a couple companies I worked with that were quite popular. And we also had a marketing company that did my website. Through the website and through Google Ads, I had 0 patients, so 0 success. And that was an investment of almost $80,000. So that sort of marked me for a long time. I was like, if I had taken this money and invested it properly, I could have gotten patients. And now I know this. With what I know now, it would be a lot better investment. After I was able to figure out how ads worked through studying myself and learning with the people I was working with at the companies, I realized that getting patients through ads is not a sustainable way for a practice to grow. So you can get a kickstart, but you have to have some way to organically attract patients. And that is what got me into studying SEO. So I ended up studying with some of the most brilliant minds in SEO in the world. The person that I studied with, they charge about $10,000 a month for SEO. They're very thorough. But so I realized I can't pay that. So I decided that I had to learn this myself and figure it out. And I was able to get to a very good rank on the maps and together with the practices that are around over 20 years old here in Austin, and start to get patients organically after I decided to fix my website and fix my SEO.
Yeah.
And I was able to become less dependent on ads, and I was able to do it quite quickly in just a few months. And so it got to a point that I was able to get at least half of my consultation schedule filled with patients organically. And that's where we still are. Yeah. And we run ads only seasonally now, but there is an interplay of both. I decided to start the company because we had an idea based on how Backlinks work, which is basically a way to enhance the authority of your site and your authority on the maps, to get a group of orthodontists and cross-post to each other. I mean, if you think about the AO, for example, the reason the AO is one of the most authoritative site in orthodontics is because they get links from all the orthodontists. So what if we could make every practice a mini AAO and add a lot of content and then get the orthodontists to link to each other and co-author these papers? And then we started this, and during the group, I was sharing a little bit about SEO and what I was able to do for my practice. And Adam Reynolds was in that group, and he was one of the first people I helped. We built his website, and Google went from his 5th source of patients to number 1 source of patients, and he became the number 1 in visibility in his city in 4 months with the SEO. And I have been telling him for a while to not talk too much about our company because we have some quite a few things that are proprietary, but we were able to take several people, including him, to the top or close to the top in the city.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've worked with a lot of my startups, and they are doing very well. And I appreciate you for what you're doing. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a deep dive into about three different things. I want to talk a little bit about SEO, backlinks, and maps a little bit. And so I'm wondering if first we can just start off talking about, because I know a lot of docs that listen to this podcast are startups or doctors who are looking at doing acquisitions or have just done acquisitions or maybe newer. We'll just say that 8 years and younger crowd that are listening. And I think so many times we put so much focus, which is important, on our branding and our logo and all of these different things. But as you and I both know, a website is just a website
Correct.
with a really great place to have really pretty pictures and really pretty colors and nice looking font. Unless we've got some good SEO behind it, search engine optimization, it really does not do anything for us. And you can launch this beautiful website and come up on page 20 deep, and nobody's ever going to find you. So I'm
Correct.
wondering if you can maybe just pull it apart a little bit. The importance of a website, that's good, but why we have to really think about SEO, especially as younger businesses trying to break into our industry.
Yeah, I like to always think in terms of first principles of like how this whole thing works. How do you acquire a patient through a digital method? So we know, I'm going to cite statistics because I have studied quite a bit of this statistics. So about of all the patients that don't find you through a referral or for a friend or not referred by the dentist, 80% will find you through Google.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where you start. And then from the point of view of the patient, when he goes and tries to search, okay, for an orthodontist or a local business orthodontist, the first thing he's going to do is to choose between Google Maps or the Google search page. And about 50% are using Google Maps, okay? So the way that the Maps SEO works is similar but different from website rankings. So then there's the second aspect of it, that when patients actually use the Google search page, only some of the results have maps, okay, which is a special feature of Google. For example, if you look for palatal expander in New York City, it's not going to show a map pack, but it's one of the most popular searches in orthodontics, okay? And so then it's important to have an article on it, and patients will find you.
Sure.
But for all other ones, about off the Google search, again, 60% of the clicks come from the map pack.
Interesting.
So then you have about 20 to 30% from the websites that are on the bottom, and then about 10% from ads. So it becomes 50 to 60 from maps, 20 to 30 from the list of websites, and only the top 3 get clicks. Okay. I can tell you that I started to rank earlier on some keywords on the websites, let's say orthodontist near me or things like that, on the list of websites on the top, but I was not getting patients that way. I only started to get patients after I took care of the maps. And here comes the biggest problem with the marketing companies in orthodontics, is that we don't know at least I don't know, because I have converted a lot of clients from different companies. There's not a single company tracking map ranks. And how can you do that if 80% of the patients are coming from the maps? Like, it's because the SEO model that uses the SERP, or the search engine result pages, is 20 years old.
Yeah.
And so many companies are still using that model, and they're still thinking the same way. And it's a completely different scenario. And we even have a third stage now, which is AI search. We are already in Orthodynamo working on optimizing for AI search, and in other companies are not even in the maps yet. And so that's another problem. Now, another problem is that for the maps, the Google business profile is more important than the website. As you said, the website, yes, you can do a lot of SEO on the website. That affects the SERP rankings a lot, but it affects the GMB is what affects the map ranks a lot. So you have to have a very comprehensive GMB optimized for the proper keywords. So it's not about having the services there, having the products, but having them written on a way that it matches how people are searching for them.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on GMB, just so in case some of us don't know what that means?
GMB means the Google My Business profile, which is that the Google listing that you have, which is what's linked to your map ranks. You still connect your website there, but it is incredible, Jill, that I get so many clients now that they have almost nothing written on their GMB.
Yeah.
And for example, the services that people look for, they're not complete. And even with marketing companies charging $7,000 a month for that, and it's great for startups. I don't like to talk and explain too much, because for startups, when we put this differential out there, people can get patients through because other companies are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it is very promising for people that are working on the maps and optimize their maps to acquire patients that way.
Yeah.
As you said, the website can give you patients. For example, the other week, I got two patients from patients looking for MARPI, which is a trend on TikTok now, like surgical expansion or MARPI or airway expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Patients are aware of that. Interestingly, I'm in Austin here. If you type MARPI Austin, there's two of my web pages that come up, but almost nobody has a page about even palatal expansion. And almost nobody has it on the GMB. Almost
Mm-hmm.
nobody has about MARPI. So interestingly, the patients start to hear about that on TikTok, and then they go to your office asking about MARPI, and they don't even need it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get patients that way just by having the content. So SEO is about optimizing or reverse engineering how the patients find you, and then optimizing for the Google algorithm so that you have the content that they're searching for. And there's two types of signal that you need to send to Google. One is the content, and one is a power signal. So those two together are the ones that will make you show on the searches.
Ah, I love it. Just dropping little bombs of knowledge right here for us. So let's talk a little bit about, you use the word reverse engineering. And I think that kind of plays right into when we talk about backlinks. And I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if you could pull that apart, because I don't know that a lot of people really understand just even what that means. I think that's it may not be newer within the industry, but I think that's a newer talking topic that I just don't think most people understand. We understand keyword searches, we understand paid advertisement, even to a point SEO and some of that. But can you pull that apart a little bit more for us?
So the Google algorithm basically is an equation, and we don't know what the weights are on that equation. And it changes very often because they have updates, but we do know what the things are that they are considering. And so to understand backlinks, you have to understand the history of search engines. So do you remember when there were older search engines like Yahoo and Lycos that were popular? And those search engines started to have a crisis because we would try to search for something, and then all of a sudden there was a bunch of unrelated websites that were spamming keywords related to your search that would show up.
Yep.
And so the reason Google broke the other search engines is that they started to introduce the concept of backlink. What Google decided, so Larry Page at the time, he was using an academic model. So like when we have, for example, impact factors of journals, basically the journal is more respected because the articles from that journal are being cited a lot.
Yep.
Okay. And so Google started to realize that when links were sent to certain sites about something, people cared about the content in their site, and they would only link to something that mattered. And so Google started to use this hyperlinking as a way to boost the ranks of the site so that spamming keywords would not work anymore. They would have to have the content, but they would have to have the power from the backlink. And so they would say, in the Google algorithm, it says the anchor text of a backlink, which is basically what's underlined when you hyperlink. Let's say if you say orthodontist in New York City and underline that and send that link to a website of a practice in New York City, it's telling Google that should rank for that.
Yeah.
So that website should rank for that. So in the Google's eyes, the search engine started to work a lot better because it started to use backlinks as a power signal.
Oh, that is, and again, I think it's hard to put your head around because we haven't talked a lot about it, but it really truly makes so much sense. And then when you think about what you have started to do, where you're saying, hey docs, let's, instead of all against each other, let's come together and kind of like you said, build our mini powerhouses, our power links, so that we are all going to link together. I think that's a really unique way of thinking and a strategy for helping each other out, but yet helping our industry too.
Yeah, so that's actually how Orthodynamo started. I had this idea because Google actually values the context of the link. So if you start to get a bunch of unrelated links of all sorts of types to your site, it starts to tell Google that your site is not about orthodontics anymore. And so you have to be careful with the kind of backlinks that you get. You don't want to get very low quality backlinks. You end up getting punished if you do that. And getting links from orthodontic websites or dental websites are the best type of links you can get. The text that is around that backlink or the context of the anchor text is very important also. The problem is if you just put a list of orthodontists on, let's say, on a page and link to everyone, that link is very little value to Google.
Sure.
Because it has to be surrounded by good content to matter. When I started understanding SEO, I conceptualized this group as, first, we don't want to be manipulative. Okay, we want to truly do something useful, and that's true. So the only way to do this would be if we co-authored guest posts. Okay.
Yeah.
Co-authoring a guest post gives the opportunity for you to contextually insert links. It took me almost a year to organize this group and get it going. I actually was able to start Orthodynamo as an SEO and web design company before I was able to get all the orthodontists set up for this.
Sure.
I almost gave up because it's so hard to communicate with dozens of people, get their logins to the website, fight marketing companies that don't want to give that. And one of the reasons we ended up converting is because the marketing companies wouldn't let us use. They were not doing any blogging or backlinks, but they would also not let us do it for them. Yeah. And then the orthodontist, I'm just going to get out of there. And so we started to do this, and now the backlinks take a while to work. But one of the important things about backlinks is that they only send power to content that you have. So if you have a very poor website and you don't have the pages, you might have a page about braces, but you don't have all the terms related to braces that people search for, you end up restricting a lot that power, bottlenecking that power signal only to what you already have. Same for your GMB and the maps. These are important, but the content is even more important that you have.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I've heard you say this before. And again, I feel like you're just giving us these really foundational pieces about thinking about marketing 2025 forward versus what we were doing 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. And I'm going to agree with you. I think that we really, as business owners, have to be constantly thinking forward and not stuck in the past there. But I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit, because I've heard you talk about this before, about how it takes a while to build all of this up, from a website, from SEO, from Google Business Page to the map packs, all of that. And I want you to talk on this because I feel like we are this convenience society where everyone thinks, I do these 3 things. And I think a lot of marketing companies sell it as, just give us a month and we're going to have you 100 patients in your door. I would like for you, from your perspective, to talk about, because I think this is a little bit more about playing the long game here than an instant fix. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes and no. Yes, I'll be happy to. And the answer is yes and no. It depends. So SEO depends on so many things. For example, I could do the best job and give someone 100% visibility, but imagine being visible in an area that has very few people is going to get very few patients.
Yep.
One of the things that I really learned and that I see is that, and I wish that I had someone like with the knowledge that I have now to advise me when I was opening a practice, is that we have all these demographics that we look at. But one of the things that is not looked at is the digital marketing potential of a location. Yeah. For example, a lot of people think that if you open in a small town that has 1 or 2 practices, you're better off than opening, let's say, in a large city, a practice. Okay. So it depends. It depends on your referrals. But from a digital marketing perspective, what really matters is how many people in the city are available for each practice. Let's say if you have a city of 20,000 people, Okay. Then most orthodontists know, but there are so many cities around here. This is the biggest mistake you can make in digital marketing because the Google algorithm favors the location of the searcher. So if you get stuck in a small city and you open a practice there and there's already one or two people, that means you have what, 5 to 10,000 people per practice.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're not going to get patients. And
Mhm.
so one of the ways to fix that, because with SEO it's very difficult to rank outside your city. That's just the way Google works. Like basically the list of sites that you get is limited to that city and only show other sites after the advantage of that practice that is there is already passed. And then a lot of people don't think of this. So you're afraid to open in a big city, but you might have more opportunity opening that. But a lot of people don't care to count the orthodontists there in the city and measure according to the population. They care more about how many orthodontists are close to me. And that's not really the way to go with digital marketing. And I can tell you, one of the ideas that I've had was to try to build some kind of algorithm for a startup based on this and where to open it from a digital marketing perspective. And because I can see very clearly, for example, we're able to get 100 patients a month to a practice in Manhattan. I can't get that for my practice in Austin, even with much better authority in SEO and doing SEO for a long time, because we have a ratio of orthodontists to population that's about 10 times lower here. And so people would be scared of situations like that because, oh, it's Manhattan, but you shouldn't be. And so that's one of the things that I learned. So does it take time? It depends. It depends on that. It depends on other things. For example, how good is the SEO of the practices around you? I mentioned Adam Reynolds. He had a good opportunity there because he wasn't that good in the competitors. So we could get him up pretty quickly. Yep. Now, there could be situations, we have situations in other cities that are not that big, but have practices with very good SEO. And then it's a lot more challenging. So like every case is an individual case. When we meet with a client and do an audit, we usually examine these things to try to give them an idea of what the scenario is that they're trying to face there.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, on this podcast, I talk about a lot of different ways you can set your practice apart. But here's one that might surprise you. Maybe you haven't thought about it before, but the equipment you use can make a big difference, not just for the patient experience, but for you and your team too. That's why I want to let you know about a new line of orthodontic equipment from ADEC. I visited their headquarters in Oregon earlier this year to take a sneak peek for myself, and I have to say, I was impressed. ADEC has manufactured award-winning dental equipment for 60 plus years, and they're bringing that same level of excellence to ortho. From comfortable, compact patient chairs to a versatile workstation and delivery to ergonomic dental stools, ADEC orthodontic equipment is designed for a smooth and easy workflow. Day after day, patient after patient, see the difference it can make for your practice. Click the link in our show notes to learn more about ADEC Orthodontic Solutions. Hey docs, let's talk about SmileSuite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud SmileSuite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. SmileSuite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with SmileSuite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
So it is possible, for example, to get what we call a low-hanging fruit in SEO, which is like people are not showing, they don't have content for this. For example, Palo Expander, here in Austin, I'm one of the only ones, so I rank all the way through Lakeway in the maps #1 because nobody has that. And it's just insane to me that the marketing companies are not doing the proper keyword research and keyword research volume to take care of this for the clients. But it works for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So we haven't talked a lot about online advertisement, but I would like to touch on that a little bit just because I think you're doing some really cool things in so many of these other areas. But I definitely have heard you in this conversation and others too, that it's not that we are not going to do that either. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how you come at if online advertisement, and is it a you pick it and you stick it and you do it from here till the end of your career, or are you maybe taking a little bit of a different approach even on that and how you approach it?
Having now experience assisting a lot of startups like you do, and having my own experience, I can tell you if you're in a competitive area, you didn't grow up there, you don't have friends that are dentists that can send influx of patients to your practice. You basically depend on, basically it's a trade-off. You're trading trust for money. So like you are not well known, you're starting a new practice, and people have to have a reason to come to you, and that's where ads come in. When I was advised by a marketing company that I engaged with to do ads, they basically said do some Google ads, and that's where it ended. I was like, okay, and there went $15,000 in ad spend, and I didn't get a single patient. But you know why? Because there was no offer. So like an ad for a startup without reviews and without anyone knowing them, without an offer, I can tell you it's almost never going to work unless you're in a rural area with no competition. And that's something that was never mentioned to me at the time, but it's what we say. There is a direct correlation between the offer that you make and the number of patients that you get from an ads. And I can guarantee you that because I have the numbers. And ads are, I would say, pretty much almost 100% of the practices that are starting, you have to do some kind of advertising. Do you have to do it for the rest of your life? No. There is an interplay because, of course, you're going to become more well-known. You will get reviews. You will get referrals from the other patients. And one of the things that people don't know is the relationship between ads and SEO. So there's so much controversy about it because and perplexity, but the reason that ads help SEO is because of reviews.
Yeah.
And ads are not, when people click on an ad, it doesn't boost your SEO like people clicking on your website organically. Click on the ad, it's not counted, and Google already made this clear. So there's no correlation between the clicking on an ad and you're getting. But reviews, both on the number and the frequency, affect your ranks on the maps and on the SERPs. And so there's multiple effects of reviews here. And when we go with the clients, we basically tell them if your competitors are already a busy practice and they're getting reviews at a certain frequency, you have to make up for that. And if you're already behind on SEO, on content and SEO, website, everything, you have to get at least a little bit more reviews than them.
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is through ads, getting patients through ads.
Yeah. I really appreciate your approach to this. And I hope everybody just heard what Rodrigo said here, in that this isn't necessarily a pick it and stick it strategy. He's constantly talking about we're evaluating and we're seeing, and as you build, it may not be something we have to lean on as much. It really is when you're taking this, it sounds like this digital approach, you really have to think about it from your Google business page to the strength of your website to how you are doing your ads, and are you being strategic and building that social proofing that comes from the reviews that you're having. And then I think that the other part, circling all the way back to the beginning, is I love that you are thinking about the Google Map component of it. And as we finish up, I'm just wondering if you can just bring us all the way back around, even with that, when we're thinking about pulling it all together. I would love to hear you talk just a little bit more about the maps and the map pack, and just really how we can.
Yeah, so the map pack is a good opportunity in orthodontics because, and basically almost nobody is optimizing their Google business profile appropriately with the correct keywords. What I see the marketing companies do is they try to please the client. And it's like Steve Jobs used to say, sometimes the client or the consumer doesn't know what he needs.
Yeah.
And so you can try, like a lot of companies are doing out there, and say, oh, what do you want? And people want a pretty website with some good slogans. But a pretty website, like you said in the beginning, it's going to put you on page 3 of Google World Technical website. That's not, it might sound a bit more robotic, but that's what a startup needs. They might want to make it prettier and more full of slogans later on when they can afford it. But that's how it starts. So the map is a big opportunity because people aren't tracking it. People aren't understanding the equation between reviews, authority of the website, and the content, and what you have, how it all plays together. So when we have our clients, we have all these tracking tools. We track in the map the 15 most popular keywords that generate patients. And so we know how that changed, and we do that every week. We do a scan in the entire city. What you have to understand, a basic difference of the map and the website I didn't have a chance to say, is that when somebody searches for you in one city in the list of websites, the SERP, depending on the person is, or independent of where the person is in the city, the results are always the same. It only changes if you go to a different city. Okay. So if you look for orthodontists in Austin, it doesn't matter where you are in Austin, the ranks are the same. Now, if you go to, let's say, Lakeway, which is a different city here, it's going to show a different set of results. Okay. So that's why I said Google algorithm works with the city location. It detects the location. But with the maps, it depends heavily on the location of the searcher in the city. So the top 3 results on the map, very close to your practice, you're going to be a lot more favored than far from your practice. Now, it's not the only thing that matters. Authority, the content, backlinks that you have, reviews, of frequency of reviews, and the total number of reviews, all of those things matter. And when you track, and I do this, I track for all orthodontists at one point, we can see it and orient a startup or even a practice that's been out for a while on what they have to do with the reviews. Like I have a client there that I was talking to this week in Charlotte that he was being overcome in his own location, even though he has almost 200 reviews, but his competitors were getting 50 and 30 reviews a week.
Ooh.
And he got 10, which is a lot more than I get, and most practices do. So with 50 reviews in 1 week, you will obliterate everyone else in the entire city. And people don't understand this. They usually understand just the total number of reviews. Oh, I have to get it all. It does happen to matter. But if you don't control all these variables, the authority of your competitors, how many reviews they're getting, like you don't know what's happening in the map, and you don't know how many patients you might be getting from it.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing you talk about this, and it's such a fresh approach to thinking about, again, how do we think about digital marketing 2025 forward versus how have we been thinking about it and the static way of doing things. As we start to finish up here, I could just keep picking your brain, and I will definitely have you on again because I know we've got a lot more we could unpack here, but I would like it if you could talk to our startups just a little bit, and especially if we've got some out there that maybe are struggling, or you've identified, I think, in a lot of people's mind, maybe some pinch points where they're like, oh, I didn't think about that, or, oh, the company I'm working with isn't really hitting these points or whatnot. If you were an orthodontic startup, or maybe a doc that has taken over a practice or whatnot, and whether they were going to be working with you or they just need to be questioning what's going on, where do you think docs should be putting their marketing dollars right now and maybe even what questions should they be asking as they are entering into this space? Because we all know it's important, but I think it's a scary realm to be in, and it's easier to just trust somebody to tell me what to do. Can you help us a little bit on that?
Yeah, definitely. Because we are, through our ads, we track all, and through our call center, because we have a call center that takes the leads. We track all the practices in different locations and how many patients they're getting from different amount of effort that we're doing on SEO, or even how old that practice is. I will say the number one thing that a startup has to care about is the same thing that it used to. Remember when people used to say, oh, you have to open a practice close to a school or close to a stop sign that people can see it. And in the digital presence, it's the same. You have to go to a digital location, okay, where you can be exposed to a lot of people. And
Sure.
that's something that people are not thinking of there. And that's what I was touching on early on
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
how many people do you have a chance to be exposed to with digital marketing. And otherwise, you become very dependent on ads if you're in a small town, for example, because you have to, that's the only way you can be shown, and it's not very effective.
Yeah.
And so that's the number one thing is like I would engage not only with a demographics company, but I would do some kind of consulting with a marketing company. And if you're deciding where you want to open your practice and you have some places that you might want to live, then you could say, what cities do you suggest that I could open that I could have a better digital marketing chance compared to the other practices? So a marketing company can audit the practices that are there and say, hey, this place is horrible. These people have so many reviews. Their marketing is really good. It will be very hard for you to get to the top. Or it might be that there is a practice that is really good, but it's only covering one side of the city, so you have a chance to take over the other side of the city. There are things like that based on the information and data that I have now. One of my biggest frustrations as opening this marketing company is that, which is sad, is that I opened this practice here in Austin and doing a lot less effort that I do for myself and SEO or ads, I'm able to get a lot of patients for people that are in different locations. And I was like, wow, I wish I knew what I know now about how the potential for patients. So I would say location is number one. Engage with someone that knows what they're doing in the digital marketing. I think I would say having someone that mentors them on the business aspect of the practice, like you, like hiring a consultant, like you're hiring a friend is one aspect. And the second most important thing would be, I would say, hiring someone not just for demographics, but also for planning your digital marketing in the future.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my perspective.
And do you think that perspective is a little different than the psychographic component? Because I feel like we can pull that out of psychographics to a point, but I still don't think it's the same as what you're talking about when you're thinking about a true digital marketing plan. Well, I don't know if you can speak to that or not, or maybe I'm putting you on the spot with that.
Oh, you're talking about, what do you mean by psychographics?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so like yeah, like almost like that, you know, how we can pull the buying patterns of an area
Oh, yeah, Jill. I think that those are like, at least from my perspective, because I have to choose populations to run ads on and all this. That is like very minor compared to actually having the people to get exposed to and the level of competition and how many of the other practices are taking. So 100% the practices that I see, it's not that they're doing their business is much better. It's not that their marketing is much better. The biggest factor by far, I would say by a factor of almost 10, is their location and competition in the digital sphere.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in this practice sometimes get a big ego because you're like, oh, I grew my practice to $2 million. But most of the time, those practices were in the right place at the right time. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. This has been fabulous. And I love the topics that we've talked about today. I think you have really opened up some people's eyes, opened up my eyes a little bit on, I just love where you're at and I love what you're doing here. And I think that this is exactly what our space needs. We need somebody thinking about our marketing in a different perspective. And I think you're right on track with it. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they want to talk to you just a little bit about what their vision, what their future may be with whether they've already have a site or are looking at opening a practice or whatnot, what's going to be the best way that they can find out about yourself, OrthoDynamo?
Right now we have about 30 clients and I'm still in a position and I still want to do this. I like to talk to every client personally, understand what's happening in their practice or what the story is so that I can make a recommendation and also explain to them how this works the same way I was explaining to you. We do it in a bit more detail. And we always run an audit, and I don't want to put other marketing companies down, but it's the same way when a patient comes to your practice and there's some things happening in the treatment. If they come to a consultation, you're obligated to tell everything to the patient. So when I have a client in orthodontics, we have to do an audit and say, look, these are your citations, their lack of consistency. You only have one link to your website after 3 years. So that's like crazy, right? Yeah. And I tell, these are the search search terms that people are looking for, are they on your website or not? Are they in your GMB or not? So, and then we go to the maps and see how many reviews the competitors are and give a realistic perspective of what the potential is. So normally I do this myself because I think there's no one else that I could hire that could do this, to do this correctly. My practice runs 3 days a week. I don't want to increase it. And I actually diminished my marketing for my practice because I have to take care of this company now. But yes, I personally meet with every orthodontist, and the best way to do it is you submit a request for an audit or to talk with us on orthodynamo.com. Our website is still under construction, but we have a form there and an audit request so that you can get this done. And then from there, we decide if we're a good fit. Our fees are still below the top 2 famous marketing companies in orthodontics for what we're offering. We have flexibility on whether you want to do ads or website or an SEO. And so there's like some things that people can pick. We're definitely not cheap like some of the companies out there because we actually put a lot of investment on the tools that we use.
Sure.
And on the acquisition of backlinks and things like that for the practice.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you so much for just sharing all of this, all of your knowledge. And I'm sorry that you got to a point where you had to do all this research, but I think it's better for all of us because you've definitely got a heart for helping others. And I think we all need to hear it. Everybody is looking for just better ways to do it. And I think you've tapped into it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I never needed to do this, but I think that a company that arises out of need is a good company. So I think that giving a chance for people to grow is a good thing to do. So I'm enthusiastic about helping people with this company so that they don't go through what I went through in the beginning and have the proper education. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you here. And it was a great thing. So I'll be happy to talk more when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I like to finish up Hey Docs is I always like to finish us up with a little speed round. So are you ready for a little speed round challenge?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Let's just start with, what is one daily habit or ritual that you have that helps you stay productive or balanced?
I sleep early.
Nice. All righty. Perfect. What is your go-to strategy for getting unstuck when you're facing a tough problem?
Usually what I do is I try to detach myself from everything and be in silence for a long time, not to be distracted. And it'll just let your brain run wild and think about it. I think that having time where you're not doing anything is underrated.
Yep. I love that. All right. And then if you could add one, I don't know, unconventional perk to an everyday workplace, what would you want to add?
An unconventional perk to an everyday workplace? What do you mean by perk? Is like a reward?
Yeah, or just something that it could be, I don't know, sparkling water in every desk. I don't know, just something. If there was something that you could add that you're like, man, I think this would just make people's work life better.
So I like to, in my practice, I like to have like premium snacks and drinks. I tell my staff that they can always get one a day. They love that. They're always drinking. We have a VIP club in the practice for patients that they get access to premium stuff if they leave us a review as a thank you. And so that's been working pretty well.
Yeah, I love that. All right. And then our very last one, is there a piece of advice you wish you had followed earlier in your career?
Yes, I think that one thing that my dad, very early on in my life, I studied aerospace engineering before becoming an orthodontist. Few people know that, and one of the things my dad told me is you have to strive to get the highest amount of independence as a business person that you can have, because that allows you to opens possibilities for you to have integrity more than in any other situation. And I think being in academics and being in science, there's a lot of politics and pressure when you're an employee. And I think that in orthodontics, we still have dependence to the patients because we have always serving someone. But I think that having professional independence to the highest extent that you can have it opens a good path for you, not only professionally, but as a human being. And so I think that we, as orthodontists, and there's a trend now towards DSOs, and a lot of people are defending it. But I think that people are thinking about money a lot when they think about that. I think that from a human perspective and a human growth perspective, having your independence is very important for development, self-development.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here on Hey Docs. And I am sure many of our listeners were writing frantically and will be listening and re-listening to this episode. So thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to the next time we talk.
All right, great. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.